This year, our theme for NSAC is Equity in Action. A lot of you might be thinking, what does this mean? When you registered for NSAC, you joined a call to fearlessly pursue a world free from sexual violence. As partners in prevention, advocacy, and policy, you are volunteering yourself and your time to address how you can change systems and institutions that have historically not prioritized the needs of survivors of sexual assault. So, I ask that throughout the next few days, you continue to think about what does equity in action mean to you? How will you embody this during the conference? And how will you embody it beyond, actually, frankly? So this conference allows us to platform innovative, creative, restorative, and transformative ideas to join the call to prevent and end sexual violence. NSAC instills a responsibility in all of us to use this national platform to advance the work of our movement. Our work requires us to do hard things, say hard things, face hard things. It may be uncomfortable, but it is necessary. At Valor, we often say we lead with prevention because we recognize that sexual violence is not inevitable, it's preventable. Prevention is the long game, so we must look at comprehensive, holistic strategies to prevent violence before it has occurred and strategies to address the reoccurrence of violence. Strategies that promote healing and accountability. This year, we have the largest prevention track in NSAC history. We also have an alternative justice track that will dive deep into restorative and alternative justice and practices. I encourage you to think about your prevention efforts and ways in which you can put equity into action when thinking about your long-term prevention strategies. NSAC creates space for us to shift culture. We have opportunities to sit in our discomfort alongside the familiarity of our peers. We can ask ourselves, why is it important to decriminalize sex work? How can I support a minor attracted person and utilize this as a sexual violence prevention strategy? We are here in community with you to sit in that discomfort and believe that systems and communities can change. Our work isn't only about taking action, it's also about listening. For seeing people as their whole selves. It's about promoting connection. Even just 10 years ago, our movement rarely engaged in work with other social movements. Whether we admitted it or not, we thought, oh, they can handle that, or we need to stay in our own lane. Now, we recognize how vital it is for us to expand our knowledge and capacity to work across movements and share common goals, because sexual violence does not occur in a silo. We have a responsibility to step back and learn from those who are most impacted. We need to be listening to incarcerated survivors, leaders of color, survivors with disabilities, farm workers, janitorial workers, and so many others. When you listen to those who are most impacted, it can inspire your work, and you can be fearless. Over the next few days, we will be talking about the importance of not discarding people, labeling them by some of their worst actions. We have a track dedicated to working with individuals who cause sexual harm because we recognize that this is a tool to advance our mission to prevent and end sexual violence. This year, we've seen increased multifrontal attacks on our fundamental human rights. With just under 500 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in the US this legislative session, our LGBTQ track begs the question, how does state-sanctioned violence and hate influence our work. Our reproductive justice track focuses on the intersection of advancing reproductive justice as sexual violence prevention, and our disability advocacy and inclusion track elevates the importance of how we can better serve survivors with disabilities. Equity in action means we are reprioritizing the role that we have historically played in preventing and ending sexual violence, and stepping back and letting others lead us. We have to be willing and open to influence change. How are you building up communities? How are you empowering communities? Our movement prides itself on being survivor-centered, steeped in honoring survivors' choices. We've seen the definition of survivor choice evolve because there is no roadmap for our work. What once used to solely rely on the criminal legal system has now allowed us to explore possibilities outside of that. Tonight, we will be showing a short film, The Recall Reframed, which examines the 2018 recall of California Judge Aaron Persky and asks the question, who actually bears the burden when we demand harsher punishment for a privileged white defendant? Our field continues to evolve, and we've seen our nation's leaders acknowledge sexual violence as a public health crisis that needs to be addressed urgently. As you heard earlier from Kaylin, the White House Gender Policy Council recently launched the National Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, Strategies for Action, to advance a comprehensive, whole government approach to preventing and addressing gender-based violence across the country. Tomorrow night, you will have the opportunity to share with key federal agencies how the launch of the national plan has supported your work. All of this is to say our world is complex. Our work is complex, tiring, and at times it can feel defeating. But what I love about our work is how hopeful we remain despite the barriers that still exist. On Thursday, you will hear from one of our plenary speakers, Cherie Tang, about the importance of building capacity and lasting relationships to drive culture change. We will end violence by engaging everyone in this work. We have to believe that we have the power to support the growth and change of individuals and communities and systems. NSAC is about taking a collective vision and identifying solutions to achieve it. NSAC is about addressing systemic inequities, preventing violence, and creating healthier, safer communities. We want to shift individuals' understanding of sexual assault. What role do you play in this movement? What action will you take today to help set the strategic direction to demand a world free from sexual violence, where the dignity of every person is valued and respected? Join me in being bold, fearless, and transformative to create a more just, equitable world. Join me in answering the call to embody equity in action.